13th pick in the draft. I still think they're moving it. I ain't alone. But what can they get from Jason? What do you think the market is on this 13th pick?
That's the thing. I get the thought of why you say that and probably why they would want to do it. And you don't need all 30 or 29 other teams to be interested. You just need one. But doesn't the 13th pick feel like a carrot to Harrison Barnes, a carrot to Kevin Huerter? Like that's the add-on?
Yes, it does.
So, and sometimes when the name isn't attached to it yet, or in this case, if the Kings are drafting and with intentions of trading it, they may be drafting this pick for someone else. I think there may be a little bit something to that. Now, I would say the pro for taking the pick, and I'm not in a camp here because I'm going to trust more of the experts that do this and say it's not the best draft doesn't mean you can't find a player. And I would say by and large, Dave, I think that's been a skill set that's been good under Monty McNair and this regime. They're not perfect at it, but I would say they've won more than they've lost in drafting, right? Don't you think they've done fairly well in that regard so far?
Yeah. What do we have? We have 4 eligible years. Last year was mid-20s, traded to help extend Sabonis and move Rashawn Holmes' money. Then you have Keegan. Then before that, you have Keegan and Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton was a grand slam. Keegan Murray, at least right now, is a strong double, maybe, huh?
Yeah, pretty darn good pick.
I'd say Davion, what you would argue has been his biggest miss, yet still is a rotation player, and then incomplete when it comes to last year. So long answer, just going back over it. Yes, I'd say he's done just fine drafting. Not to mention, by the way, Keon Ellis and everybody else that he's done.
Yeah. So I think that's an area. So to me, the pros for keeping it is they've been pretty good at it. Number 2 is you get a player under contract control for several years, and I think that those are the positives. Doesn't mean that's the end all be all. That's the exact way you have to do it. But if you can find with this pick and another player or two that gets you something else that you really desperately want or feel like you need, then I'm all for that for sure.
I just worry about are we worried much about the we talk about where they are on the age scale. I completely agree with you. Obviously, on contract, that's a huge, huge thing. And the Kings are kind of running out of room here. They've got Sabonis and Fox. Keegan Murray's going to come up, in the next couple of years. Whatever these moves, and I keep stressing this, whatever moves they make now are so damned important because it's going to lock you in from for a number of ways, cap-wise, because they're just kind of right on the edge, and you can see that with this whole Malik Monk thing. So I feel like they want to bring in as impact of a player as we talked about the summer of distressed assets, the soda that's happening this summer. This seems like the summer of Monty McNair. I'm going to be not only am I going to be surprised, but I'm going to be quite disappointed if the Kings haven't. I love Monty. That's my guy. I've defended him to the death, and I think he's done a wonderful, wonderful thing. But I will say this. If the Kings go into next year and they haven't made any impact moves, then it is time to kind of heat up that seat, because even the excuse we often will say, which is a truth, but we don't know what was out there. At some point you say, okay, but other GMs are finding things that are out there, and sometimes you got to create the thing that's out there. So are we having an issue with that? Because Dallas somehow found a way to get better. A number of teams found a way to get better at the deadline or over the summer. We've got to get in there now. Like, we have to, because the timeline ain't our friend.
And I think they know that. I think they've, took a route and had to live with that. And last year saw better results of not being super aggressive at the trade deadline, right? They stayed at the 3 seed. I think a lot of people, myself included, thought, oh man, Phoenix is going to pass the Kings. Dallas will probably pass the Kings. And that didn't happen a year ago. This year was different. And so they had split results and kind of not being that aggressive at the deadline. I don't think they're in wait mode anymore. It sure sounds like, and even what you hear kind of in a national narrative, that the Kings are going to be one of the teams looking to be a little bit more aggressive. And I think this is one of the assets that they do have that could lure something, is this 13th pick.
And with that 13th pick, let's just, for the sake of argument, say they choose to make the pick. Then for me, Zach Edey becomes a very, very interesting topic. He has two things that you cannot teach, which is size at 7'4" and the ability, that hand-eye coordination. Now he's not, this ain't Kyrie Irving here with the handles or anything. Don't get me wrong. But for a guy that size on a team that severely lacks any form of inside defensive presence, this side of Defensive Player of the Year nominee vote getter Domantas Sabonis, if you're talking about the two-time College Player of the Year, we've illustrated before though how many times that is, the College Player of the Year has not translated to the NBA, but those guys weren't 7'4", 300 pounds. We're not talking Simbular here. We're talking about a guy that has shown he can put the ball in the basket, he can rebound, he can block shots. I say screw it. Why not? You're at number 13, not number 5. Go for it, because the upside to Zach Edey is incredibly fun, and everybody else is just the same type of crapshoot.
I think Zach Edey, if the Kings were to draft him at 13, right now it seems a little bit higher, though it does appear that he's moving up some people's draft boards. You obviously know that, like you said, there's no other substitute for that kind of size. I think my pause would be, in the history of the draft, I would say more of the mistakes are made based on that premise. Like, hey, you can't teach size. You're right. But, a lot of times those players, not all the time, but some of those players flame out and it just doesn't work out. But I think we would be looking at, I wonder what the expectations would be, Dave. Like, if that is announced and that's the Kings pick, at 13, generally, you feel like you're trying to get someone that's pretty either a starter or a high rotation player. I think he would just be a rotation player, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. He doesn't have to define his career in the first couple months, but you could see someone that could be utilized strictly as a unique, physically big player that this team just doesn't have. And I would think he would be a bench guy, but that would be okay.
And if he is a bench guy, then he is fine. Great.
Right.
We
just be a productive one.
Just be a productive one. And I don't know if the guy's going to go out and play 40 minutes a game. I don't know if he'll ever be a guy that goes out and plays 40 minutes a game, but man, does it give you some stuff to work with. It gives you a massive, one of the biggest bodies in the NBA. And when you talk about the Victor Wembanyama's and the Nikola Jokic's, the Joel Embiid's, the Giannis Antetokounmpo's, well, Zach Edey might be a nice guy. Now, don't get me wrong. One-on-one, this dude's barbecue chicken. There's no way he can stay with these guys. But as a supplemental key enforcer by the way, I'd be very interested to see how he would play alongside Domantas Sabonis. My first instinct is they cover a lot of ground, a lot of the same ground, and Domas is not a stretch 4. But on the other hand, I think Zach Edey could do really well with that big rear end of his, getting in the way of a lot of potential defenders and giving Sabonis room to move around, which he does quite well. I think it would be a fun little. I think Zach Edey on the Kings would be kind of like owning a Miata. Like, you don't necessarily want to show it off to your friends, but when it's just you on the road screwing around, it's a blast.
Do they still make Miatas?
I think so. I mean, no offense to Miata.
Yeah, it's McGruber's car.
I've always wanted I've always wanted a little 2-person roadster to roadster around in, but I don't know. It's not something you're going to pick your boys up in and hit the town, but, get out on highway.
Yeah, just a boy.
Just get up on Highway 160 and cruise around in your dial. That's what I'm saying. Zach Edey, same thing. But he
first place, Highway 160.
That's what. Hey, man. Hey, Highway 160, River Road, summertime. Leave Sacramento around 6 o'clock. You get on that River Road around 6:30 by Hood Franklin. Head your way out to Aisle 10. Stop at a nice restaurant. Sun's going down. You get near the Delta. The breeze kicks in. The smell of that Delta air. I'm telling you, you take that all the way from Sacramento to Antioch and then just take the main roads back. You do that in summer with the top down. That's one of the best drives. It's one of the most underrated drives in Northern California.
I pay my taxes.
Pay my taxes.
You're living when you do that.
You're living large. Dog.
Yeah.
No, hey, no cap.
No cap.
None of a cap. We'll take a break. When we come back, what to watch tonight and